back, fellow babies, to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're watching as a Patreon patron or as a YouTube subscriber, thank you so much for your support. If you're watching for free on YouTube a week late, at a minimum, all of you, please link your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account, because Amazon will pay us for the privilege. It costs you nothing. And the instructions are in the show description below. Remember, you have to re-up this about every month. So, just please go down and re-link it if you haven't done so in a while, because we'll get a couple of bucks for nothing. It costs you nothing. Today's question from SIFTD from my good friend Mick Womble. Over the last year, there have been more reports of mineral shortages that will impact chip production. An EU scientific panel suggests that we invest heavily in tech recycling to avoid running out of essential minerals to make tech products. Microsoft is suggesting Xbox owners shut down their consoles when they're not being used. How do you think games industry and other tech sectors should respond? I didn't even know there were minerals in chips. Like, I thought chips were made from silicon and like etched with copper, and I don't know. If you watch that movie Don't Look Up on Netflix, they were going to mine the asteroid that destroyed the Earth, the comet that destroyed the Earth, for rare minerals. I mean, tech recycling is actually really smart and pretty easy to recycle tech. I mean, you can pop the chip, and again, if you pay enough, anybody will do it. Rather than Microsoft suggest that, Microsoft could make the default that the thing turns off after an hour of inactivity. It's pretty easy to do. So if you fall asleep on the couch, you're not going to be pissed. And they could also program the thing so it saves wherever you were doing. Auto saves every 5 seconds or every 5 minutes or whatever, and you're not going to lose anything. So I would find it very difficult to believe that there's a commodity component like a semiconductor that relies on a wasting resource, like a rare mineral that can't be found. And so I think this is supply and demand. If demand goes up for these rare minerals, people will find them. They'll dig more and they'll find them. I think in general, we should find cheaper ways to do everything. And if you can make a semiconductor from lower cost materials, somebody's going to figure that out. It's sort of like the old incandescent light bulbs. It took a long time before they were replaced with LED lights. And, yet the technology for LED existed like 50 years ago. It's just that it was prohibitively expensive to make, and now it's ridiculously cheap to make. And, I had a car, which year was it? I had a car in 06 that had xenon lights, headlights, and they were ridiculous. They must have been, I think each headlight was $500. It was crazy because I broke one. I actually cracked one, and I just cracked it, $500. And now my headlights are LED, and they're just as bright. And again, and not expensive. So technology will figure out a way to replace this stuff, I think. It doesn't make sense to make semiconductors out of precious metals or precious minerals. So someone will figure it out, but I don't know how they'll figure it out. The reason I said everything is solid state, these things use like no power. So back in the day, I mean, God, you remember PCs that you had to have your fan was as big as your PC to keep it from blowing up? Now, again, obviously there are PCs with big ass fans to keep them cool, but now laptops with a solid state drive, there's barely a fan in it. It barely heats up at all. It's funny, I covered Corsair as one of, and I never really understood power supply and cooling fans, and they were showing me how performance goes up as the temperature goes down. It was fascinating. I just didn't know that. It didn't occur to me. But again, I mean, I think if we all accept lower performance, then the costs will go down, and environmental destruction will be lower. I just got my first OLED TV. The thing is like that thick. I mean, it's like a notebook. It's so thin, like a real notebook. It's half an inch thick. The whole TV. It blows me away. So. And it weighs like 20 pounds. So the amount of stuff in it that's going to destroy the environment has to be less than the old, LCD TVs. There's one on the wall right there that I paid $300 for. 15 years ago. I bought that when I moved in for my kids.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Best Buy
still
brand.
works.
Yeah, well, because they never watch TV in here. It's a Best Buy brand LCD TV. But yeah, so I mean, I think that it's a big business for manufacturers to figure out how to have less of an environmental impact, lower footprint on components, and same with cars. Cars get lighter and lighter and lighter every year. But video game consoles are not our biggest pollution problem. They're just not. There aren't that many of them. Just think like 87 million cars a year sold. How many game consoles? 20 million? And think about the mass of a car versus the mass of a game console. So, the stuff in a car is much more polluting. And, I always laugh, like my favorite, Tesla. Everybody loves Tesla until you got to get rid of the batteries. And then what do? I don't even know. I don't know what happens to batteries. I just know they're toxic and bad. And I don't know how often you have to replace them, but guess what? I don't have one. I'm not going to get one. So I don't know the answer. Sorry. You asked something way above my ability to answer. Maybe Ed Fries can answer it because he's smarter than me. Thank you guys who are Patreon patrons. Thank you, YouTube subscribers. Thank all of you who have Twitch Prime accounts and link them to your Amazon Prime account. All of those are ways that Shane gets support and can keep the shows coming. And if you can't do any of those things, then at least follow me on Twitter. You're still getting the content a week late, but I will engage with you on Twitter unless you're in, but I probably won't. We'll see you next time.